It's 2022. Do you write your own?
Is it?
What a great, fantastic start. I think it is. I don't know which planet you live on. I mean, you're a sci-fi guy. I don't know which calendar you follow, but do you write your own OKRs? And for people who don't know what an OKR is, can you just explain the concept, the objective and key results? Do you do that every year or not bothered with it?
Yeah. OKR. Okay. So it's a good question. I mean, really, New Year's resolutions is a rebranded OKR, or OKR is a rebranded New Year's resolutions, right? Like, my general answer to that is for Boost VC, we work as a team to come up with our OKRs. And so we for our annual strategy. And, you know, you have to ask like, okay, what's changed? What hasn't? Like, what was the last year? You have to sort of know where you are as a team to know where you're going, right? And so that's what OKRs would be for us. It'd be like, we have one metric that we focus on at Boost VC. How many companies raise more than $1 million every 6 months for our portfolio? So in the last year, we had 52 companies raised more than $1 billion. And that's not including like Coinbase, and there are a couple others it doesn't include, but like that metric has evolved over time. But actually that metric has not evolved over the last 3 years. We've been very focused on that. But what was important has evolved a little bit over time. And so the OKR for us, no matter what, is every 6 months we track and try to hit a specific goal of how many companies raise more than $1 million. It's good to know what goals are so that you know what's important, so you can drop other stuff. That's what OKRs are good for. It's about there's a great, what's that guy's name? From Apple, the designer. He said, he said focus is working on something, coming up with a really good idea, sleeping on it, obsessing over it for a full week, and then putting it away because you're focused on something else. Like that's what focus is. And like, that's what OKRs give you the ability to do, is like being able to focus. Now, my OKRs for like me and life are a little different. Like I would say I call it a bucket list. And I go and I, have ambitious goals that I've set for myself over the last, I guess I've started this like 10 years ago, and I've been doing it for about 10 years now. And some of the goals you can't do them in 3 months. You have to do them in, it takes years. And you also find over time that the really hard ones get achieved, and the ones you didn't care about as much but sounded attainable don't. And that's always a really important, it's important to challenge yourself. Like, and it also, every year you read through them. Like I read through them this year, and some of them you accomplish and you're like, okay, how do I level that up? Like, yeah. So I would say OKRs to me, there are two in my world. One is sort of personal life, family, life stuff, and one is Boost VC and goals. And fortunately, most of those goals are aligned long term.
I know that this will sound very cliche, but I'm asking it because maybe the Europeans need some context. But if you take a basketball analogy, and I would love you to tell about your family. Do you feel like kind of like a Stephen Curry, that you want to overachieve because you have this sort of genes and environment? Or how does that play out, right? Because obviously you have the name, you have the family genes, but can you just paint a picture in that as well, in terms of the personal goals?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great question. I'm really lucky. So my great grandfather started venture capital on the West Coast. He actually created the first LPGP structure, which is how all venture capital is set up today, or 99% of venture capital is set up today. and like that fund, it was called Draper, Gaither and Anderson. He brought over his son, who's my grandfather, Bill Draper, over from Inland Steel in Illinois, to California, and he was really the sort of planted flag. Bill Draper is sort of a touchstone of venture capital to many people. He has taught, coached, helped, and invested in many people over the course of the last 70 years. And then some of his wins are like he backed Activision, Apollo Computers. There are a lot of things that sort of have fallen off. He missed Apple, so got that going for him. That's a great story. And then when my grandfather actually went to Washington, and he worked for the government as the head of the Export-Import Bank. He my dad started in venture, and it was around the same time. And my dad was the first venture capitalist to create an affiliate model. So at its peak, my dad at Draper Fisher Jurvetson had 27 different venture funds. I'm giving a whole history just to get to what I feel about this. And my dad was and then my grandfather came back into the game, but he didn't want to compete with my dad, or that's what he claims. But he really, what I think is, he's very good at finding where he can be a monopoly and be the only one where capital is being deployed. And so he went to India with his partner, Robin Richards, and who, it's another great story. He became partners with her after one lunch, and he spoke at Stanford Business School, and then she was just tenacious, and they became partners, and they went over to India and founded a fund that the first Indian venture capital fund returned 16x the money. It was an awesome fund. I recommend reading his book, The Startup Game. And my dad wrote a book called The Startup Hero. And then my dad was the first global VC. So he created this affiliate network that actually went global, and he realized entrepreneurship was everywhere, and there was going to be huge growth all over the planet, especially because of the internet. And but when I was growing up, venture capital wasn't really a thing. If someone asked me, my friends asked me what my dad did, I said he's helped really early stage companies, and no one really cared beyond that. It wasn't popular. Startups weren't really a thing, and it was against the grain to start a company. I'd say that transition has happened where the social risk to start a company is way lower than it used to be. So, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but there are so many people who feel it's a better pathway to either learning or building value, or it is the best structure to create innovation still. So that innovation will still be built by the private companies.